I think when the prosecution gets to redirect, we're going to see them try to link the violence that happened later in the relationship to her participation and make the argument still that she was being coerced.
The whole time, Diddy is eyeing his attorney on his right, Tenny. Immediately after, Tenny gets up to do the opening statements. It appeared that she had white nail polish on.
The prosecutors did file a letter to the court earlier this morning because they feel like Diddy's team is purposely trying to go for a mistrial. They believe that Diddy's attorneys were trying to push Cassie's cross-examination into next week, and if she does go into labor, the judge will be forced to call a mistrial.
In a trial already steeped in controversy, tension, and disturbing allegations, the courtroom proceedings for Sean Diddy Combs' federal case have witnessed yet another explosive moment. This time, it was not the testimonies or the evidence that grabbed headlines, but rather the behavior of one of Diddy's own defense attorneys.
Cassie's mom just finished testifying. It was really short and quick because Diddy's side decided not to question her. And in 15 minutes of her testimony, she confirmed years of abuse, fear, and blackmail, including a moment where she and her husband had to take out a home equity loan because they feared what Diddy would do to their daughter. Regina testified that she met Diddy in 2006 when Cassie signed to Bad Boy Records. Regina said that Diddy was Cassie's boss, then her boyfriend, and in her own words, then her abuser. Regina was asked to read an email that Cassie had sent to her on December of 2011, and she read it aloud to the jury. Cassie wrote to her mom saying, "The threats that have been made towards me by Sean Puffy Combs are that he is going to release 2 explicit X tapes of me. One on Christmas Day, maybe before or right after, and another one sometime soon after that. He has also said that he will be having someone hurt me and Scott Miscuddy, who is Kid Cudi, physically. He made a point that it wouldn't be by his hands. He actually said he'd be out of the country when it happened."
A tense verbal clash between the defense and prosecution resulted in a rare and public scolding by the presiding judge, drawing fresh scrutiny to the conduct of Diddy's legal team and adding yet another twist to a case that is becoming one of the most watched legal battles in the entertainment industry. The trial has been marked by emotional testimonies and shocking revelations. Recently, Regina, Cassie Ventura's mother, took the stand and delivered a brief but impactful testimony.
Then there is this picture. It's a small alleged container of cocaine. The government found it with a rolled up dollar bill next to it. That cocaine has a label on it that says DBL Wash. Agents also found this green locked heavy duty container. It says Diddy right across the front. And then this picture shows what it appears they found inside, which includes 2 large bags of marijuana. Along with the bags of drugs and the adult toys that agents found during this raid, they also found several weapons inside the home. There's also a magazine and bullets that appear to go with that style of firearm. Then there are pieces to AR-15 rifles like this. The government says the serial numbers on those guns, this one with a skull and crossbones on it, have been defaced. Then there's another AR-15, that one has a biohazard logo on it. That also has a defaced serial number, according to the special agent who took the stand.
In just 15 minutes, she confirmed years of abuse, fear, and blackmail that her daughter allegedly endured at the hands of Diddy. Regina recounted a harrowing moment when she and her husband were compelled to take out a home equity loan due to their fears about what Diddy might do to their daughter. She testified that she met Diddy in 2006 when Cassie signed with Bad Boy Records, describing him as Cassie's boss, then her boyfriend, and ultimately her abuser. During her testimony, Regina was asked to read an email that Cassie had sent her in December 2011.
We have some eminent attorneys joining us who disagree about what's going to happen here. And I guess it's going to come down to what a jury thinks of how much of this was consensual or how much was non-consensual or indeed stroke coercive. And a lot of may rest, of course, on Cassie Ventura's testimony. How do you think she did? Obviously, she's heavily pregnant, which must have made it a very difficult experience for her. But how much of her testimony do you think, if you're a juror listening to all this?
Well, one of the things I want to point out is none of us, maybe your commentators were, but I certainly wasn't in the courtroom to hear what she had to say. This is a situation in the federal court where they do not allow cameras, so we can't see her testimony and see her body language and hear her tone of voice and that sort of thing. So what we have is commentators who seize on certain things she said, certain things she fails to say, and then try to make a mountain out of it. Let's remember that in a lawsuit, You don't win a case based on one witness or one piece of evidence. Typically, you're building a wall. And one of the things they teach you in law school is a brick is not a wall. Cassie Ventura's testimony is one brick in what I expect to be a very long trial with a lot of bricks attempting to build a wall.
We have a brand new evidence drop from the government as they make their case in the sex trafficking and racketeering trial of Sean Diddy Combs. These are new pictures from inside Combs' Miami mansion from when it was raided by federal agents in March 2024. From risque adult toys and high heels to guns, ammo, and drugs.
The email detailed threats made by Diddy, stating that he intended to release 2 explicit tapes of her, one on Christmas Day and another shortly thereafter. Cassie also mentioned that Diddy had threatened to have someone physically harm her and Kid Cudi, emphasizing that he would not be present when it happened. This email served as a chilling testament to the alleged manipulation and control Diddy exerted over Cassie. The prosecution has presented a wealth of evidence, including items seized during a raid on Diddy's Miami mansion.
Gina said that Cassie came home to Connecticut that Christmas and she had bruises on her back, thigh, and shoulder. She said, "I wanted to make sure we memorialized it," and she took photos of these injuries. Gina said Diddy then demanded $20,000 from her and her husband to recoup the losses because of Cassie's relationship with Kid Cudi. So they took out a home equity loan and they wired the money to a bad boy record account. She said, "I did it because I was scared for my daughter's safety." 4 or 5 days later, the money was returned to her with no explanation. In August of 2016, she said she visited Cassie in LA for her 30th birthday. She said that night Diddy stole Cassie's phone in a bitter argument outside of her apartment. Regina testified that Diddy's security D-Rock was standing between her and Diddy. She said, "I was yelling, screaming, and trying to hit him." She said eventually Diddy returned Cassie's phone, but then he took her car. She was also asked if she had called the police during this time, and she said yes, and that was all with the questioning. When Diddy's side was asked if they wanted to do a cross-examination, they said no, and that was.
Among the items found were a small container of cocaine, a rolled-up dollar bill, and a heavy-duty container labelled with Diddy's name that contained large bags of marijuana. Additionally, several firearms were discovered, some of which had defaced serial numbers. This evidence is crucial in establishing a narrative of control and intimidation, further complicating Diddy's legal troubles.
What is your reaction to how the defense is approaching this so far?
So, Brianna, we expected this. We know from the opening statement from the defense, a big part of their case is trying to get this jury to believe that Cassie Ventura was a consenting adult in these acts, these freak-offs that we've heard so much about during her direct testimony. So a lot of what the defense has been doing today during this cross-examination is showing text messages and getting Cassie Ventura to acknowledge that, according to these text messages, she was a willing participant in some of these free. But one of the things that we haven't done or haven't heard yet, Brianna, is the connection between those text messages in the early stages of the relationship and the violence that we heard so much about during the direct testimony yesterday. And I think when the prosecution gets to redirect, we're going to see them try to link the violence that happened later in the relationship to her participation and make the argument still that she was being coerced into these commercial acts with escorts, despite how she may have felt about Sean Diddy Combs in the beginning of their relationship.
As the trial progressed, testimonies from former employees and associates began to paint a troubling picture of Diddy's behavior behind the scenes. Among the most emotionally charged moments came when Regina testified about the years of quiet suffering her daughter endured.
Glenn, sir, you allow another moment when Miss Love calls me that I did not do something. They have the exact image of what we got from the jail in Fayette County. That is it. And if I get another false allegation and you do nothing, I'm shocked. I'm appalled at you. I sit here day after day with this false allegation just machine. I gave the state everything. There's been no disconstruction. There's been no purposeful, I don't care. I give over everything. I've done this for 33 years. Never in my life have I seen a trial. I've done 300 appeals in the state of Georgia alone. I've never read a case like this. Judge, I gave them everything I had. I waited, I was at my office till 8, after 8 last night. I waited for their investigator to come by. I handed him an exact copy of thumb drive. There's been no deconstruction. There's been no purposeful exclusion. This is not the first time.
Okay.
And I apologize that I'm getting tempered, but I've never been treated like this. You talk about professionalism every week. Professionalism is lacking with one lawyer here. It has never been. I don't even like coming to court. I used to love this. I would die for what we do. I used to say, I'm dying. I would die. I couldn't choose a better profession. If I had litigated with Miss Love, I would.
Your Honor, could we strike the ad hominem attack?
No, I'm
really,
speaking.
could we strike that?
Okay, hey, everybody, calm down. Everybody, both of you, please be seated.
Judge, I'm not
Both
done.
of you, please be seated.
You have to do something.
Former bodyguards, assistants, and even members of Diddy's management team have come forward with stories of intimidation, surveillance, and what one ex-employee described as a culture of fear within his inner circle. These revelations are casting a long shadow over the defence's attempts to control the narrative, and with each new witness, the trial veers deeper into a complex web of power, misconduct, and celebrity influence.
Miss Love would come in and say, that juror was crying. It was not true. You would say, that's not my recollection after I said it. You did nothing. We start the case.
But Mr. Steele.
I asked you, please.
Mr. Steele.
Please, Judge, how would you feel if you were being treated like
Mr.
this?
Steele. Mr.
Well,
Steele.
I'd like to finish.
Mr. Steele.
I gave them everything on that drive, and it's continual abuse of a prosecutor, of another member of the bar. I don't talk with Miss Love. And that's fine. I like that. But Judge, I'm not going to stand here anymore. I don't care. You can take my bar card.
Mr. Steele, listen.
Wrong, though. And Mr. Williams, to me, this is an innocent man. You talk about, Miss Love said there's a man in the Fulton County Jail who shouldn't be there, Mr. Copeland. Mr. Williams shouldn't be in custody. But he's been charged, and we come here for a fair trial.
Legal experts have noted that the outcome of the trial may hinge on the jury's perception of the consensuality of the relationships involved, particularly regarding Cassie's testimony. Observers have pointed out that while Cassie's testimony is a crucial piece of the case, it is just one element in a larger mosaic of evidence the prosecution is building.
All that was an ex parte conversation. How did you find out about any of that?
Well, I'm disturbed too.
You got 5 minutes.
Well, I don't need it. I want to continue.
Mr. Steele, I am going to hold you still hold you in summary criminal contempt.
This is actually turned into a pretty central part of the prosecution's case. So the allegations that make the drug use particularly relevant are that this is one way that Combs exerted control over both Cass Ventura and potentially other victims as well. We haven't heard from them yet. But part of the way that he was able to make Cassie compliant during these freak-offs, we learned this from her testimony, is through the use of drugs. So Cassie testified that for many of the freak-offs, she was high. She was given a number of different narcotics. We had other witnesses that came in and testified about seeing her, laying on a bed, appearing to be under the influence of some sort of drugs. So this was what we're seeing now is a pattern of Combs being able to, in some instances, control her through many different ways, but one of the central ways that we've heard testimony about is through these drugs.
The trial is expected to delve into the nuances of consent, coercion, and the dynamics of power in relationships, particularly in the context of celebrity culture. Tensions escalated during a recent court session when Brian Steele, one of Diddy's lead attorneys, became visibly combative during a line of questioning by federal prosecutors.
We also have some new pictures of Ventura. This is one of her with Don Richard, who's the former Danity Kane member who testified this week that she had witnessed Combs assault Cassie multiple times. In this picture, you see Cassie on the right. Richard testified that Cassie wore glasses to hide the swelling after Combs allegedly hit her in the face. This was in New York in 2009. Other pictures show some of the injuries that the government alleges Cassie suffered at the hands of the now disgraced music mogul. We are blurring the bruises in these pictures. These are sensitive images about a sensitive topic, and also because of the rules of YouTube. Now we see in this image here, there is a bruise on Cassie's leg. We have another picture where there's a small bruise on her shoulder. This is a picture that shows Ventura with a dark bruise that's below her waistline. All of these have been already presented to the.
His outburst prompted Judge Aaron Subramanian to intervene, reminding Steele that the courtroom is a place for respect and decorum. The judge's reprimand underscored the seriousness of maintaining professionalism in such a high-stakes trial.
Employees, former assistants, former musicians, everyone within the Diddy orbit, all have testified they witnessed violence, they saw it on multiple occasions, and yet they did nothing. And this spans years, right? Cassie is with him, but all of these people, these bystanders, are watching it happen, seeing it occur, and still either continue to do business with Diddy or stay in his orbit.
Steele's behavior, characterized by interruptions and a confrontational tone, quickly derailed the courtroom's decorum and provoked the intervention of the judge, who declared, "This is a court of law, not a stage. You will respect the process or risk sanctions."
Sheree Hayes. In his line of work, he went by the name The Punisher. He laid out what he said happened during freak-offs he was allegedly hired to be part of. He claimed that Combs entered the room in an instance only wearing what seemed like a Muslim hijab, carrying Astroglide. The Punisher said he noticed it because of the purple cap, which we do see in the government evidence photos, and he explained that it was sexual lubricant. He also said he had no communication with Combs during the as he wore allegedly that veil over his face and nothing more. The government is also submitting several images that show drugs that were seized from the house in Miami. Here's a picture of some of that evidence laying on top of a Gucci designer bag. This is a picture of a Ziploc bag that has several different kinds of pills. Some of them are pink, white, blue. There's also a rolled up $100 bill right next to that bag. In another plastic bag, there are more pills. These seem to be two separate kinds as well. Some are white, some are yellow. Then there are orange and pink pills you see here that, according to the Homeland Security Special Agent who is testifying today, that's the party drug MDMA. It's similar to ecstasy. This is according to the Homeland Security Special Agent who testified today about what they saw in Miami during this raid. Now, we don't get descriptions in the evidence drops to tell you exactly what these pills are, but when it comes to drugs, Combs' former assistant, David James, testified this week that Diddy allegedly took drugs every day when he worked for him. Specifically, throughout the day, he would take Percocets and then switch to ecstasy at night.
Steele appeared momentarily stunned, but continued to argue his position before ultimately relenting under the judge's pressure. The prosecution has argued that Diddy's alleged drug use was a means of exerting control over Cassie and other victims.
Let me read you parts of her opening statement. "It's time for me to introduce you to him. His name is Sean Combs." And at this point, I almost peed myself because Diddy stands up, and it's like kind of abrupt. Like, I wasn't expecting him to stand up. It almost feels like maybe because he was so statuesque the whole day, he forgot how his limbs move, and then he just like shot up out of his chair like a little rocket heading into space. Or it feels kind of like a military roll call. Just like shoots up, back straight, posture straight. She's like, his name is Sean Combs. You may have heard of him by Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, Puffy, Diddy, but standing in this courtroom at 55 years old, in the same place he was born and raised, he's going by the same name he was born with, Sean Combs.
Testimonies indicated that drugs were often involved in the abusive dynamics, with Cassie herself stating that she was under the influence during many of the encounters. Former assistants testified about Diddy's daily drug use, claiming he would take Percocets during the day and switch to ecstasy at night. This pattern of behavior is critical in establishing the prosecution's narrative of manipulation and control. In a sensational turn, a male escort named Sheree Hayes testified that he was frequently flown in for freak-offs, a term allegedly used by Diddy's circle for private parties.
Sean Combs has a bad temper. He sometimes gets so angry or so jealous that he is out of control. You will see evidence and you will hear some testimony that does not portray my client in a good light. You will hear some text messages, some voice notes, and some witness testimony that may make you think, I don't think this guy is a great guy. I don't like how he just lied to his girlfriends. I don't like the things he just said in that text message. I want to tell you now, there may be one point, there may be multiple points at this trial where you think, I think he is a jerk, and I think he is kind of mean. But he is not being charged with being mean. He's not charged with being a jerk. He's charged with running a racketeering enterprise. I did peek at people in the courtroom.
Hayes described graphic scenes involving high-profile guests and confirmed the use of a specific brand of lubricant that federal agents say was seized, photographed, and logged as evidence during the raid on Diddy's Miami villa. Hayes, who went by the name The Punisher, recounted an instance where Diddy entered a room wearing what appeared to be a Muslim hijab and carrying the lubricant, emphasizing the bizarre and troubling nature of the encounters. The government has submitted several images that show drugs seized from Diddy's house in Miami, including various pills and a rolled-up $100 bill found alongside them.
To the Diddy trial now, the forensic psychologist Dawn Hughes was on the stand earlier today, day 7. She was brought in by prosecutors to break down why victims of domestic abuse stay in relationships in many cases, how they cope, or why it takes leaving the relationship for some victims to then open up about the abuse they were experiencing.
Testimonies from former assistants have corroborated the prosecution's claims, with one assistant stating that Diddy allegedly took drugs every day while he worked for him. This evidence is crucial in establishing a pattern of behavior that the prosecution argues was used to control and manipulate victims. As the trial continues, the implications extend beyond Diddy himself, touching on broader issues of accountability within the entertainment industry.
Hi there, Andrew. Taking up most of today's testimony was Dr. Dawn Hughes. She's a board-certified clinical and forensic psychologist, and she testified on why people stay in abusive relationships. She testified in other high-profile cases like the defamation trial with Amber Heard and Johnny Depp, singer R. Kelly, and NXIVM founder Keith Raniere. She dug into 4 main topics: why people stay in these types of relationships, how they cope, and how and when they reveal what happened to them, and memory. She explained that abusive relationships do have love, and trauma bonding can make it harder to leave, and taking illegal substances can numb the pain of it all.
The case is not just about one individual. It reflects larger issues regarding the treatment of individuals in positions of power and the culture of silence that has long existed in the industry. The testimonies and evidence presented are not just about Diddy. They represent a reckoning for the entertainment world, challenging the status quo and demanding accountability for past abuses. The trial is expected to last approximately 7 weeks, with Diddy facing serious charges, including racketeering and sex trafficking.
Now, the last witness to take the stand was George Kaplan, a former assistant to Sean Combs, who says one of his responsibilities was to set up Diddy's hotel rooms. The first time he unpacked Diddy's bag, he found baby oil, Astroglide, candles, and liquor. The other times, he'd have to buy the items on his corporate card. He also had to make sure the rooms were in polished shape before checkout to protect Diddy's image, and often threw out empty baby oil bottles, and once threw out a powdery crystal substance. And he said he was instructed by Diddy to pick up drugs 2 times. Both times he testified Diddy gave him cash to pay for it and gave him a number to call someone to pick it up. Now, tomorrow we'll continue with his testimony, with George Kaplan's testimony, and after that we can expect to see rapper Kid Cudi on the stand, who briefly dated Cassie Ventura, and he will also testify on allegations that Diddy firebombed his car after finding out the 2 were dating.
He has pleaded not guilty. As the proceedings unfold, the world watches closely, not only to see the fate of one man, but to witness how the justice system addresses allegations that resonate throughout the industry. In the courtroom, every action and word carries weight, contributing to a larger narrative that the jury, the public, and history will ultimately judge. The trial serves as a critical moment for survivors and witnesses, as well as a reflection of the legal system's role in addressing systemic issues of abuse and power.
These are containers of Vital Honey powder. It's a powder that's used for enhancement. According to the FDA, in fact, the agency actually advised people not to buy this stuff in 2022 because it contains the same active ingredient as Cialis, which you need a prescription for. Then there is this wide picture of a bathroom in Diddy's house, and you can see what looks like lipstick or marker written on this mirror. One of the messages reads, "What do you want?" And below it reads, "Love you, love Diddy." Then there's also another message that says, "You are legend and breathe." Combs' trial is expected to last roughly 7 weeks. He is charged with racketeering, sex trafficking by force, and transportation to engage in prostitution. He has pleaded not guilty.
As the case progresses, the focus remains on the testimonies and evidence that will shape the jury's understanding of the allegations against Diddy. The legal proceedings are expected to last several more weeks, with significant attention on the implications for all parties involved. The unfolding drama continues to captivate audiences, raising questions about the balance between vigorous defense and the dignity of the legal process. Ultimately, this trial is about more than just the charges at hand. It is about the culture of silence, power, and protection that has long existed in the entertainment industry. It is about the role of the legal system in providing justice not only to individuals, but to entire communities affected by systemic mistreatment. As the trial continues, the world watches, waiting to see how the justice system will respond to allegations that stretch beyond one individual into the very core of an industry still grappling with accountability.